When I met Damon, I was teaching a small cooking class out of my garage in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, just trying to keep the lights on while working double shifts at the co-op grocery store down the road. I was 34, divorced once already, and had long given up the idea of some romantic movie ending. My goals were simple: keep my head above water, get my recipes into print, and maybe one day run a little cafe where I'd call the shots. Damon was the manager of a sleek, upscale wine bar downtown, the kind of place I couldn't afford to eat at but had once wandered into during a girls' night when my best friend Cammy insisted we stop playing poor and live a little. He had that slick confidence that made you feel like he already knew your story before you told it, and when he found out I cooked for a living, his eyes lit up. "Maybe you can teach me how to make something edible," he joked, and by the end of the night, I was flattered enough by his attention to give him my number. What followed was a whirlwind romance, him sending flowers to the store, bringing me fancy balsamic vinegars and truffle oils, even staying late to help wash dishes after class. "You're brilliant," he'd say, watching me stir my mushroom risotto. "You should be published." He always made a point of saying he believed in me, that he saw something in me no one else did. And I, like a damn fool, let him in. Over the next 2 years, we built what I thought was a partnership. He encouraged me to compile my recipes into a manuscript. "Your book," he called it, and even helped design the cover with his friend Todd, who worked in digital marketing. I'd spent months testing, rewriting, and photographing dishes, all while still running classes and saving up for a pop-up supper club I dreamed of launching in the fall. Damon was by my side for all of it, taking notes, proofreading, even suggesting names for the book. We finally settled on From Pantry to Palate, Southern flavors for the everyday table. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was mine. Around the same time, Damon started talking about branching out of the wine bar and opening his own place, a modern bistro with heart, he said. Something that didn't just cater to trust fund kids and yuppies but served real food with soul. I was thrilled. "We could work together," he said, over grilled peaches one night. "I run front of house, you run the kitchen." It felt like everything I'd wanted was finally falling into place. I didn't even mind when he asked if he could borrow a few of the recipes from my manuscript to pitch to investors. "Just to give them a taste," he said. I gave him the PDF. I didn't password protect it. Why would I? The betrayal came slowly, quietly, like a pot you forget on the stove until it scorches the bottom. It started with an Instagram post. Damon had just announced the grand opening of his new bistro, June and Timber, named after his grandparents, apparently. I hadn't seen the menu yet, but he was working nonstop, and I figured he wanted to surprise me. Cammy sent me a screenshot of the post while I was chopping onions. "Looks like your deviled eggs are making a debut." I froze. The photo was unmistakable. My rosemary-infused egg whites, the smoked paprika swirl, even the little pickled okra spear I used as a garnish. My stomach dropped. I clicked through more photos and saw dish after dish pulled directly from my manuscript. My slow-braised short ribs, my cornbread panzanella, even my bourbon peach tart. "He wouldn't," I said aloud, but I already knew he would. When I confronted him, Damon played dumb at first. "We worked on those together," he said, waving off my anger like I was being dramatic. "You're overreacting. It's not like you trademarked deviled eggs." That night, I went home to find my manuscript files deleted from our shared cloud drive, and the thumb drive I'd kept as a backup gone from my drawer. It was like I'd been scrubbed from my own work. I checked the copyright registration I'd filed a month prior, still pending. I felt like I'd been gutted. Worse, the restaurant was a hit. June and Timber made the local paper within a week and even caught the attention of a regional food blogger who raved about Damon's innovative twists on Southern staples. I watched interviews where he talked about years of culinary inspiration and family recipes with the same smooth charm he once used to compliment my mashed potato technique. He mentioned me exactly once in a throwaway line. "My partner helped me test a few things." Just a few things. Never mind, I had written every one of them. Cammy was livid, and so was my older brother Malik, who had helped fund some of my classes early on. "You can sue," Malik said, but my lawyer friend Laura said it would be hard to prove without the original files or documentation, especially since Damon had already put the dishes into a commercial setting. "You'd need a paper trail. Emails. Drafts with timestamps." I had some, but not enough for a clean case. I was devastated. I tried confronting Damon again, but he shut me out completely, blocked me on social media, changed the locks on the condo we shared, it was in his name, and told mutual friends I was having a breakdown. I felt humiliated, discarded, and powerless. But that's when something shifted. Something cold and steady. Damon thought he'd stolen everything from me. He forgot one thing. I still knew how to cook, and I wasn't going to let him turn my food into his empire without a fight. It took a few weeks to crawl out of that initial pit of humiliation, but once I did, I realized I had something Damon didn't: grit. I'd built everything I had without handouts or slick-talking investors. I knew the people, I knew the food scene, and I knew what it took to work 16-hour days with grease in my hair and flour under my nails. Damon, he'd coasted on charisma, curated aesthetics, and people like me. So I started planning. Not a lawsuit, not a confrontation, but something slower, smarter, and more permanent. First, I took a hard look at June and Timber. The place was popular, sure, but it had problems. They were operating fast and loose, overbooked, short-staffed, and already earning some grumbling on food forums about service inconsistency and rising prices. The heart of the menu was still mine, but Damon was beginning to alter things he didn't understand. He tried turning my brown butter sweet potato hash into a truffle foam top tapas plate, and my fried green tomato stack into a weird deconstructed art piece with squid ink aioli. The customers were noticing, so I called in a favor from James. He was an old friend from culinary school, now managing supply chain logistics for a regional restaurant group. I asked him to keep an ear out if any of Damon's vendors were complaining or looking to rehome accounts. "You think he's burning bridges?" James asked. "No," I replied. "I know he is." Meanwhile, I got to work reclaiming what was mine. I rebuilt my manuscript from scratch, not just the recipes, but the stories behind them. This time, I filed the copyright paperwork with triple backups and a paper trail a mile long. Then I started documenting my experience with Damon. I combed through old emails, texts, even receipts showing food costs and test batches labeled in my handwriting. Kemi helped me organize them. "We're building a war chest," she said. Malik, in true older brother fashion, said, "If you want to burn his whole operation down, I'll bring the gasoline." But I didn't want to burn anything. I wanted to replace it. That's when the idea hit me. I wouldn't go after June and Timber with a lawyer or a public tantrum. I'd undercut it from the inside out. I'd build something better. I used the little cash I had and launched a series of pop-up supper clubs out of borrowed spaces. Church kitchens, local gardens, even an abandoned mechanic's garage that Malik helped me convert for one weekend. I called the series Table and Thread, and every dish came with a story. People ate it up, literally and figuratively. I had handwritten menus, Polaroid guest photos, even a chalkboard wall where guests wrote down their favorite food memories. I didn't have fancy plating or curated lighting, but what I had was soul. Within 2 months, I had a write-up in the Triangle Weekly and an email from an independent publishing house that had tasted my collard green gnocchi at one of the dinners. "We'd love to talk about your book," it said. I almost cried. But the real momentum came from a totally unexpected place: social media. I started a small TikTok account under the name It's Southern Stitch and began posting short cooking videos where I told personal stories while cooking through the chapters of my upcoming book. One video, me making skillet cornbread while talking about the grandmother who taught me to keep bacon fat in an old Folgers can, went viral. The comments were full of people asking where they could buy my book, taste my food, or come to a pop-up. I leaned in hard. Within 3 months, I had over 100,000 followers and had crowdfunded the money to secure a lease on a small standalone building in the warehouse district that used to be a pet grooming shop. Cammie's boyfriend Henry was an architect and helped me redesign it on a shoestring budget. Malik and his construction buddies did most of the labor. I hired 2 of my old students from the garage classes, Trina and Eloise, as prep cooks, and together we opened Threadbare Kitchen, a 28-seat restaurant that served seasonal prix-fixe meals built from the pages of my book. No gimmicks, no truffle foam, just real food, made right. And here's the delicious part. Damon never saw me coming. While he was dealing with investor pressure, a drop in Yelp reviews, and staff quitting over chaotic scheduling, I was quietly stealing the very audience he'd tried to build. Some of his former regulars started coming to Threadbare. A couple even recognized dishes from June and Timber and asked why mine tasted better. I smiled and simply said, "Because I wrote them." I never named Damon publicly, never threw shade online. I didn't have to. Word spread naturally. And then, the final piece fell into place. One day, James called me. "Guess who's about to default on their primary supplier account?" he said. Turns out Damon had over-leveraged himself trying to open a second location and had missed several payments to his produce distributor. I reached out quietly and made a deal. Not only did I offer to take over the account at a better rate, but I offered to pay off the past due balance in exchange for exclusivity within a 10-mile radius. The supplier agreed. Damon's kitchen started struggling to get the same quality ingredients, and customers noticed. When one of his chefs quit and applied to Fredbear, I hired her. Her name was Nadine, and she came with a whole file of behind-the-scenes dirt. Emails Damon had sent claiming he co-developed all the recipes with a now-absent partner. A draft of a second menu clearly ripping off more of my work, and even a complaint from a former server who'd overheard him mocking my viral videos, calling me a bitter ex with a ring light. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't about spectacle. It was about permanence. Damon had taken credit for my food, my voice, my story, and I had built something that couldn't be erased with a password reset or an Instagram post. Something real. Something lasting. But the best was yet to come. The final twist in the knife. And it came courtesy of a phone call I never expected to get, from Damon's lawyer. The voicemail was clipped and formal. "Ms. Ramsey, this is Greg Walters, legal counsel for Damon Willis. We'd like to resolve a matter involving intellectual property claims related to the menu at June and Timber. Please return my call." I stared at my phone for a long time, not because I was nervous, but because I'd been waiting for this moment for over a year. See, once my book dropped, Fredbear, Recipes for the Unraveled Heart, and debuted on the New York Times extended list, people started making the connection. Journalists, food bloggers, even former staff from June and Timber began comparing my book's recipes to Damon's menu. The overlap wasn't just inspired by, it was word for word in some cases. The same sauces, same structure, even my phrasing in the preparation notes. And because I had dated manuscripts, digital backups, and copyright registration on file, the legal line between influence and theft wasn't blurred, it was bold and underlined. When I finally called Greg back, I was calm, polite. I told him I had no interest in dragging this into court unless Damon insisted. "All I want," I said, "is public acknowledgement and a formal cessation of all menu items lifted from my book. And if you refuse, I'm prepared to let this go to discovery, which I guarantee your client doesn't want." 2 weeks later, I had a signed agreement, a formal apology posted on June and Timber's socials, and a quiet settlement transferred into my business account. Damon tried to spin it in interviews as a collaborative misunderstanding, but the damage was done. His reputation in the food scene, a reputation built on charm and charisma, couldn't survive the paper trail. Investors pulled out. The second location folded before it opened. June and Timber limped along for another few months before closing entirely. I didn't dance on its grave. I didn't need to. I was too busy expanding. Fredbear started offering cooking classes and community events, and I hired Cami to manage press inquiries after a local TV spot led to a national profile in Bon Appetit. Malik and I worked together on a short docuseries about rebuilding after Betrayal. He shot, I narrated, and Trina and Eloise got their own episode as breakout talents. The restaurant booked up 3 months in advance. We hosted weddings, proposals, even a few celebrities whose agents asked for privacy but left generous tips. But what meant the most were the quiet messages I got online. People saying they found strength in my story, in my food, in the way I didn't let someone else define me or profit off me again. One night, as I wiped down the counter after closing, Nadine looked up from the pass and said, "He thought you were a stepping stone, but you built a damn castle." And I smiled, because she was right. Damon had tried to steal my story, but all he'd done was light the match. I turned the ashes into something beautiful, something mine, forever.